We are the Necrotizing Fasciitis Foundation, also referred to as the NFF. Our mission is to advocate and spread awareness about necrotizing fasciitis, a rapidly spreading bacterial infection that can destroy skin, fat, and tissue covering muscles, not to mention lives. Often referred to as the flesh-eating disease or flesh-eating bacteria. To contribute, participate, or for more information, please visit our website at www.necfasc.org.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Borrow. I'm the Secretary for the Board of Directors for the Necrotizing Fasciitis Foundation. Today, we're lucky enough to have co-founder of the foundation, Melissa Blair Sanders, on with us live from Texas. Melissa, are you there?
I am. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Hey, Melissa. So to give you guys some background, because a lot of you don't know me, I'm a necrotizing fasciitis survivor for the past 8.5 years. I did contract it from an emergency C-section. Melissa and I go way back to when the foundation started, and even before that, and have become quite close. So Melissa, I do thank you so much for your time this afternoon. How is everything going today for you in Texas? I know you mentioned a little bit ago it was really hot down there.
It's hot. It's really hot. I was outside with our new puppy, and she runs and I sit, but man, it's hot. That's all I can say is it's hot out there today. So
welcome to Texas, right?
Yeah, but that's Texas in summer. It's actually kind of funny because it's mirroring 1998 when I did have my flesh-eating bacteria. So
oh, wow.
The weatherman said, we're going to have weather like it was in 1998. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let's hence off anything else that might have happened that summer.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. So, Melissa, you did have necrotizing fasciitis back in 1998. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about how you contracted it?
So I really have no clue how I contracted it. I had, as we've gotten members into our group and hearing other people's stories, they're very similar to, some are very similar to mine. Some are not similar at all to mine. But I had a pimple on my leg and I had popped it and I had done everything that I thought I needed to do, put medicine on it, and I went on my way. And it was probably like a few days before that had happened. And I just happened to be running into the bathroom around that time. And in Texas, there were a bunch of kids that had come down with necrotizing fasciitis. And the judgmental me said, man, those must be some nasty people that let their kids, they don't clean their stuff. Boy, I should have stopped at my judgment, because I think sometimes our judgment becomes what our reality is at times. Not saying, but I think sometimes that does happen. So I then, when I finally made it out of my stuff, I kind of remember that. And that's always put in my head. Don't be careful what you say and be careful what you judge, because you never know what can happen. Because I have a pretty tight, it's not tidy, but it's pretty clean. I keep things in order. So it wasn't like that. So then I had to kind of think, oh, those were kids and you were kind of harsh to the parents and whatnot. But anyways, back to me. So I was a teacher and I taught high school, and I taught in the inner city of Houston, and I live in Katy. And to kind of give you a contextual time, it took me without traffic. And if anyone knows Houston, you can better believe there's always traffic, but without traffic,
absolutely,
an hour and 15 minutes to get about 35 miles. So, and that was my commute daily. And so I was grading final exams because I taught high school. I was grading at night, late into the night, and getting up early in the morning. And I've always been a non-sleeper. So, this was kind of pretty typical of my behaviors. and then on the weekends I would usually crash. And, but I had kind of burned a little bit extra oil. I think my tank was kind of low. So, I remember it was during final exam week, and, one day I just couldn't keep my head up. I mean, I did the final exams, but I had a break in between exam times, and I just put my head down on the desk, and I was like, I just need to just rest here for a minute. And I thought, gosh, I feel like I'm getting like a cold or the flu, not the flu, but like just how you just feel like yucky, that summer cold that you get. I was like, man, I got to get through this. And so a couple days later, my coworker and I were standing out in the hallway. Everything was done. We were turning our keys in, and she looked at me and she goes, "Hey, what are you going to do fun this weekend? I mean, this summer?" I said, "I'm sleeping. I'm sleeping the whole summer." I did.
Everyone's wish list for summer.
And I actually did, because that weekend I got home, and our car had blown up a few weeks prior to that. So my brother-in-law and sister-in-law had let us use their vehicle, and Bill picked me up, and we were headed back into town, and we had been invited over to hit my sister-in-law's families for a party. And I was like, I don't want to go to this party. I just have no desire to go to this party. And John wasn't feeling well, my youngest. So I was like, John and I are going to stay home. And I told Bill, you take the kids, and you take Jenny and go on, and John and I'll stay home. And I put John in bed with me, and I turned on Disney movies, because that's what we did in the 90s.
Absolutely.
Watched our movies, and we had just mom and John time, but I fell asleep. And I woke up, and I knew he was hungry, and I don't even remember what I gave him to eat. I walked out and I gave him. My sister and mom called, and guess I was out of it, and they were like, "What's going on?" But they live in Virginia, so they kind of didn't know what was going on. And I think I said, I just, I'm sick. I have a cold. I'm not feeling well, and I gave the phone to John, and John talked to him, and I guess he hung up. I don't know. And then throughout the weekend, I just got worse. And Sunday came, and I couldn't even get out of bed. I had to get out of bed because I had a Girl Scout troop. My sister-in-law and I co-led a group together. And I got out of bed because I had to find the paperwork. I had left the paperwork very easily to be found, I thought, but evidently I didn't. So I had to get out of bed and go find this paperwork. And I was inside, I was like angry that I had to get out of bed because I wasn't feeling good. Why couldn't they handle this? And I was just annoyed. And I didn't really understand why I was annoyed, because I didn't act like that. That wasn't like my normal operating kind of procedure.
Right.
So I went back and got in bed, and it went down all day. And Bill told me, hey, you need to if you're going to take a shower before you go to the hospital, you can take a shower. And I was like, I'm not going to the hospital. This is just the flu. I'll go see the doctor tomorrow, because we were very tight with our money, because Bill had been laid off from his job a couple weeks prior to that. Our car had blown up. I mean, just a lot of like craziness going on. And so I said, I'm going tomorrow. And he was like, no, you're going today. So if you're going to take a shower, you need to do that. So I mustered enough strength to take a shower. But then I got back in the bed, and he came in and he goes, you need to get up, because we're going to, and I said, no, just let me, I'm going to get dressed. Just let me just rest a minute, because I'm just really tired. And he was like, okay. And so he went and got a couple neighbors to come in and kind of rouse me to get moving. And I really wasn't too energetic with them either. And they thought that I had been drugged or whatever. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
Whatever, they don't know, you never know what goes on in a house. You think it's a certain way, and then you find out, it's not that way. But, so they were just speculating. And then my sister-in-law came back with the group. And so Jenny comes back home. John's there in and out playing because, they're not, we kind of we weren't helicopter parents. We let our kids, we were able to let our kids play outside and run over to the neighbor's house and know it was okay.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that gets to really happen in today's society. And I'm not going to speculate that it does or doesn't. But so we played around, and John played around. Jenny came back home, and my sister-in-law was like, you need to go to the hospital. And I was like, look, it's just the flu. I can pay $5 tomorrow, or I can pay, a lot of money today.
250 now. Yeah.
I'd rather not pay that now. I'd rather pay the $5 tomorrow because that's my copay. And she was like, no, you really need to go to the hospital. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, Bill's really like pushing this. And I'm like, it'll be okay. You get a scrape, you put some medicine on it, you go on your way. That's just the way I've always been. So they got home, and Rebecca said she would stay with the kids. And that was another thing. We didn't have anybody to stay with the kids. So Bill was going to have to stay with the kids, or John was going to have to go with us. And I'm not a big advocate of everybody going to the hospital, because there really doesn't need to be everybody at the hospital. There only needs to be the person and maybe one other person in my mind. But that's just the way I grew up. So my sister-in-law says, I'm staying. So we go out to get in the car, and we had gotten our car back. It was finally fixed, but it wouldn't start.
Oh, no.
And I was like, well, good, then I can stay home. And I thought I was being verbal, but I guess I wasn't being verbal. And I kept rubbing my leg, like the spot on my leg that was being affected. I kept rubbing it because it was oozing.
Oh.
And my sister-in-law said to Bill, call an ambulance. I'm calling the ambulance. And now I'm sitting in the car and I'm going, these MFers, it's bad enough we're going to the hospital, but now I have to pay the ambulance.
An ambulance fee.
That's ridiculous. And so I was like, so I just sat there, and they said they were asking me questions and I wasn't answering them. And I thought I was. My brain was like answering them, but they said I wasn't answering them. So they took me in towards town, because at the time Katy hospitals weren't really good. And Bill knew if I needed anything, if he could get me closer to town, because Memorial City had a hospital, they could transfer me easier downtown. So that's what happened. I went to Memorial City, and the NBA finals were on. I remember that. And Bill had left to go get a snack. And I guess I wasn't being cooperative. And I yanked my IVs out, and I was going to leave. And so they tied me down and left. And Bill came back, and he was not a happy camper with me, because he couldn't even leave the room without me acting up. So
Right.
He kind of a piece of his mind. He didn't realize where I was at the time with how bad off I was. He knew I was bad off, but he didn't know that I was like out of my mind. So they transferred me down to another hospital that, thank God, because the doctor that saw me there had seen it previously. He was a military doctor, and he did mission trips. So he had done, he had been out and had seen it. And so he knew what he was looking at. And all I can remember was throwing up. And the nurse that was taking care of me, she was a school nurse, but during the summertime, she worked in the ER because they have to maintain hours. So she worked in the ER. And so she I remember her talking to me about it, about where she worked and all that, and how but I don't remember a lot. Then I remember people would come in, like the little white coats, because it was a teaching hospital too. It was It was St. Luke's. And so the little white coats came in. And so then, they had to ask them what did they think I had, blah, 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 blah. And I kept throwing up. And I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. I'm just, like, here I am, sick as a dog, and these white coats are coming in, and it was frustrating me. But whatever. And so the doctor came in, and he pulled Bill in, and he pulled me in. He goes, we have to operate right now. And he told Bill, he goes, you need to get her family here, your family here, whoever wants to see her needs to get down here.
Oh, wow.
Because I can't promise that I'm going to make it through the surgery, and I can't promise that she'll make it even after we do the surgery. So
That sounds familiar.
yeah. So my mom got called, Bill's mom got called. Everybody got, all the troops kind of came from. Bill's mom was in New Jersey. My mom and my sister came down from Virginia. And Benson, Rebecca, Bill's brother and sister-in-law lived here at the time. So they came back into town, and they kind of rallied the troops. They watched the kids. And then Bill got sick.
Oh, no.
So he had to be kind of like out of the picture for a few days until he got on medicine to get back to where he could come back in. And they kept taking me to debridements. And I don't know how many debridements I went to. I have no idea. My mom kept a little notebook, but she didn't really take great notes. She jotted things down, and I found it recently, but it wasn't like complete. I don't know how many surgeries I had, but she'd say they're taking her again. They're taking her again. Like,
oh, wow.
But it was just crazy, that I'd go into the day thinking, well, I was pretty much out of it, but they'd be like, oh, she's going to have a good day. She's going to have a good day. And then I'd just tank again. So then they would rush me back to the surgery center there and cut. And so, one night it was crazy. It was a night that I really wasn't doing well. And, I don't believe in ghosts. I really don't believe. I'm not a very supernaturally kind of girl. But my dad, who had been dead since 1984, was with me. And he kept coming and talking to me, and I'd try to go reach to give him a hug, and he'd move over to that side of the bed. And so then he'd talk to me a little bit on that side of the bed, and I'd reach over and try to give him a hug. And then and I finally said, you need to stop. You need to stop. You need to stay in one spot and stay, or you need to go. Because I can't. I can't with you, because I can't give you a hug, and you're frustrating me. And my mom said she heard me say that, but she didn't really know who I was talking to. And then that night, I just felt like I was in a hammock, like I was being rocked, and I was in like one of those slings, like a mom carries her baby in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really, really close to death at that time. And I think that was God holding me and just making sure that I was going to be at peace. And I was like so much at peace. I can't even describe that I didn't see lights, that I just felt like I was being rocked. And I can still feel that today. So it makes me know that there's a God, and know that there's a purpose and whatnot. They got me out of ICU finally, and they put me in the next level down. I don't know what that is. And that
Step
was
down
not
unit.
that wasn't such a great floor to be in. They then somehow a needle wasn't placed where it was supposed to, and the cleaning lady got stuck by one of the needle. It was just not very taken care of, and it wasn't very clean all the time. And with this, it's kind of like and I was still kind of in and out of things, so I really didn't know I noticed, but it wasn't kind of like a big deal to me. But it was to Bill and my mom. And
Oh,
so they
absolutely.
kept, they were, my mom and Bill were like huge advocates. And I'll tell you what, they are the ones that probably made sure that I stayed safe. I remember calling Bill one day. He had just left the hospital and gotten home, and he was probably home maybe an hour. And I called and I said, they are not answering my bell. I put my bell on at like 7 o'clock to get medicine, and they are not answering my bell. And it was to help my stomach. And I said, honey, I'm so sick to my stomach, and they are not answering my bell. And he goes, hang up with me. And he called back to the hospital. And he goes, listen, I was just on the phone with my wife, and she said she's had her bell on, and you guys aren't answering her phone. I mean, her call, what's going on? And they were like, oh, well, we'll be in there in a minute. And he goes, no. See, you're going to go in there now, and you're going to take care of it. And she's going to call me back. And if you haven't been in there, I'm coming down, and you're going to know I'm here. And it's not going to be pretty for you.
Glad I'm on Bill's good side.
Yeah, he can be there when you need him to be there. And they did. They came in and they gave me my medicine. And I think Bill came in and stayed the night that night. And then he went out and got my mom. And then when they came back, they had a meeting with the hospital administrator. They didn't even, like, there was no appointment made. They just went to the thing and they said, we're here to talk, and we aren't leaving until we talk to her. I was transferred within half a day from the horrendous floor to the surgical floor. And I wasn't supposed to go to the surgical floor until I was ready for surgery for the skin grafts. But they were like, no, we're going to send her on up to the surgical floor. And I had the best care there. I'm sure Bill was and my mom were the reason why I had the best care, but I had the best nurses. I had the best care. And every day I would have to go. And in Houston, they have this big medical complex, and it intertwines with the cancer centers, and it intertwines with the children's hospital. So you're going through this maze of whatever. And every day I had to go to hydrotherapy, which they would put me into this, lower me down into this big whirlpool like thing. And they would put a little bit of bleach in there and something else. And the water would just bubble. Like it was like a jacuzzi, but it wasn't warm water. And it would just bubble around. And what they were doing is they were continuing the debridement and the granulation of the skin, so that when they came in with the skin grafts, it would adhere. So I was fortunate that when the skin grafts came, I only had one little section that didn't take, but it grew. It's kind of like grass. It kind of overlapped and grew, and I have a scar there, but it's no big deal. So that was successful for me. But I'll tell you what, the skin grafts by far were the worst. I mean, the pain from NF, I don't remember but the skin grafts, holy moly. And the doctor told me, that area's, and I was like, yeah, okay. He said, it's going to feel like you had a road rash, or, you slid into third base. And I was like, okay, well, I hadn't really ever experienced that before. So I had no clue what he was talking about, except for, like scraping your knee. And yeah, that does hurt, but a scraped knee is nothing compared to the scraping of your whole entire leg and part of your belly. And then you have to stay still so that those things can stay. I don't know how long that was, but it was a long time. I couldn't get up, had to use a bedpan. It was horrible. And by then, Bill was staying with me every night. They finally told Bill that he could stay with me nightly. So he just stayed at night, and then my mom would come during the day and stay with me during the day, so that the kids kind of had some balance. And Bill took over my role. I went from the care, I taught all year, and then in the summertime, we would go do the fun things. So now Bill still didn't have a job, so he had to keep the kids busy. And so the dynamics changed a little bit for the kids at that point, which um, John, John, my youngest, is hysterical. I mean, he's been hysterical his entire life. He would come in when they would allow him in, and he'd rip open the covers and he'd look to see what else, what's new, what did they do different, because something's. And Jenny, on the other hand, she backed herself back, way back in the corner, and didn't really want to come see. So it was kind of interesting to see that dynamic, because I really thought it would be different, because Jenny was very interested in sciencey kind of things, and I didn't think that she would be like she was, but it really affected her a different way. And I think it was more, when I look back reflectively, it was more she's seeing me in a bed, hooked to machines. She didn't know when I'm coming back, if I'm ever coming back. They don't tell her your mom's never coming back, but
Right.
they, but kids are pretty intuitive. So that was, then they sent me to a rehab, and I just wanted to get home. I wanted to get home so that I could be home. I knew I could recover better at home than I could in a rehab hospital. I mean, they weren't doing anything for me extra special. They would make me walk laps around, okay, well, I can walk around the block at home. What the heck? They weren't really doing anything different. They were going to send me home with home health care. So I guess they had to line all this stuff up, and I had to meet markers, and I pushed myself to meet the markers, like I had to be able to walk so many feet. Well, man, I just started walking, and I just did it. Cause I wanted to get out. And, teachers, I worked for a school district that didn't pay teachers year round. So that summer, Bill didn't have a job. We weren't getting any pay. So it was kind of difficult. And I had a great staff. They pitched in and helped. They did blood drives when blood drives were necessary. I had students give blood at the school. It was totally amazing. I mean, I just can't tell you, we should have been flat on our face, but we weren't. And I'm thankful for that. I have a lot of blessings out of this crazy thing. So that's what I chose to focus on, is my blessings instead of all the horrible things. Because you can go two ways. This
Right.
is horrible, or this is something that's happened, and which way do I choose? And I'm kind of like the suck it up buttercup kind of girl. So it was the happy way. But when I took the blessing happy way, I also buried a lot of stuff because I didn't deal with it. So I stayed busy. I always was busy. Once I got out of the hospital, I pushed till the doctor, and I made the doctor actually sign in October. This happened in May, and in October I was back in the classroom teaching full time. They told me I would not be back in the classroom at all that school year, that to expect to be out. And I was like, no, that's not happening. One, that's like the way my brain, I need to be busy. And two, my family needs an income, and Bill still hadn't been work. So it was times of desperation. It was, we need to do something. And so I had to prove that I could work to my doctors. And he said, I'm going to sign this letter, but I'm saying I'm signing it with objections. And I was like, okay, well, you do what you got to do, and I'm going to do what I got to do. And I really didn't know at that point in time if that would make a difference with my school district or not, but it didn't. As you know, teachers are hard to come by. Even back then, they were hard to come by. So they were happy to have a warm body that knew what she was teaching for her students. So even though I did send lesson plans in and stuff, they still, I still needed to do it. I worked that the rest of the year, and then I worked another year, and then then Bill and I talked about it, and I tried to be a stay-at-home mom. After Bill got a job, I tried to be a stay-at-home mom, and that just wasn't working for me. I mean, I tried, but it just didn't work. I mean, it wasn't in my DNA. I would be busy, but I wasn't busy enough. And
Yeah.
so I started working in industry, and I did that for a couple months, and then I got a phone call from another school district asking me if I would come interview, and I was like, absolutely. When can I be there? Can I be there now? Because I'll come now. And they said to come in a couple days, and I went and I got the job. And it was not that I was super confident that I was going to get the job, because I didn't know if I would get the job or not. And it was teaching middle school, and I started out in middle school. So it was kind of like I was going back home. I did middle school, then I got to high school, and now I'm going back to middle school. And I kind of had ideas of what I'd wanted to do with my career. And I did. I met all my career achievements, which were good. I stayed very active with my students. I got them involved in things. I had them active. I had their brains moving. I created a teacher organization for kids that wanted to be teachers. And I created in my school, I brought that curriculum into my school, because I felt, let's teach kids what teaching looks like, so that they can see what it really looks like, as opposed to going to school, spend money being a teacher, and then coming out and really not liking it. So I tried to give them as much real as I could. Like, they had to do lesson plans. They had to teach the classes. We went to preschool, but they were under the direction of a good teacher. So, I mean, they had good mentors. And so I had several kids go on and be teachers from that, which was good. And then I left the classroom, and I became a support person for teachers in career and technical education. And I did that until I had to medically retire. So, I mean, that's me in a nutshell as far as NF goes. Once I healed from NF, I thought, I'm pretty well over it. I'm done. But you still have the residuals. I had nerve pain. I still have nerve pain. I just chose to kind of like figure out how to deal with a lot of things, as opposed to not dealing with them for me. But I also, like I said, I buried a lot of stuff, because it was easier to put things away in a compartment and tuck it away. And then, it's kind of like it's kind of like finding that box of old photographs. And as you look through them, oh, what great memories. Awesome, wonderful. And then you go through here, and you see some dark times, and you're like, oh, yeah, put those pictures away. And then you see the crazy times, so it kind of all mixes together to make this person, whoever you are. And I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I am. So, but what I would like to say is, I really think we need to talk about the kids. Like, I need to talk about my kids. I need to say to people that have kids, that's my family. Bill, of course, is the one right next to me. And then John is my middle one. That was his graduation from Lone Star University, and then Jenny, and then her husband, Adam. But my kids were thrown into something that I don't know was really fair for them, because I didn't know at the time about mental health. I mean, I grew up in a time frame where, you kind of sucked it up, buttercup, and you deal. Well, that's the way my parents brought me up. You'd suck it up, deal with it, go on to the next problem. Let's move on. And but if you don't have the tools to get through them, and I'm not saying I had great tools, but I think my kids would have benefited by seeing a, a counselor, of what's going on. Jenny definitely found safety with other people. Um, she's a great kid. Um, but I think our relationship really kind of she became a way big daddy's girl, and I kind of became this entity, and I allowed that. Where maybe if I would have had a better grasp on mental health for kids, um, maybe it would have been better for Jenny, and John. I mean, John, he went his way. He went his way and did his life, and some of the things he chose to do wasn't what I would have done, but he's, thriving and growing now. So that's all that really matters. But I really think maybe if they would have gotten the mental health, John would have gotten mental health help and Jenny would have gotten mental health help. Things would be different for them. So,
Do you think, Melissa, that given the lack of education with the public and the medical community about NF impacts the recovery of the folks that have it, the families of those people, and the grieved families who've lost somebody? There's really, as far as I've seen, no particular preset guideline on everything you need to address in your recovery. Like a normal surgery, people think you have the physical recovery and then you're good. When I had NF, because it was from an emergency C-section, no one could see it unless I was at the physician's office.
right,
So people saw me walking around and thought, oh, you're fine. And with you
right,
on your leg and your
right,
abdomen, again, same kind of situation.
right,
And I know the goal of the NFF, Necrotizing Fasciitis Foundation, is to spread awareness through general public and
right,
communities and physicians and nurses on identifying it. Do
right.
you feel that a further push on everything they should take, someone should take a look at in their recovery process should be like not necessarily a list, but here's things that may need to be addressed in the
Right.
recovery for an entire whole recovery?
Right. I think that's true. Um, the doctor, like I went to the doctor as I was healing, and they put me on antidepressant, and I'm either high or I'm low. I'm not a flat girl. I don't live in flat. Um, that doesn't mean that I'm flying off the handle or I'm always giddy or whatever, but I have emotions.
Yeah.
And when I was on the antidepressant, it just made me flat. I mean, it truly just made me like, okay, that bothered me, but oh well. And it was like, no, that's not the way I wanted to live life. If it bothered me, we needed to do something about that bother so that it wouldn't continue to happen and then an explosive situation happen. So I think they need to address the PTSD. Obviously, like I'm a suck it up buttercup kind of girl, but there are things that can send me right down that, a certain smell. Um, Seeing blood and gore doesn't really get to me. So that's not. But there's just some little triggers that can set me back, and I'm like, and I can go into the guilt, because a lot of us have the survivor guilt.
Yes.
Why did I make it, but this person didn't make it? Why am I better? Or they had a much better life than I did. Why did why did I get to stay? And I had that for a little bit of time. I mean, and I think that, those are the things that need to happen. I think physical therapy, I with the stuff that I got afterwards from NF, I had spots that would come up. Like I had in 2000 and like 4 or 5, I was put back in the hospital because where in the part of my hip, it would fester up and it would bust open and it would be gross. And I'd get
Mm.
it fixed, like taken care of. And of course, that mentality that I have, I'll take care of it myself. And when I can't take care of it, then I'll go get seen. Well, I had done that same thing. I had taken care of it, and one of my coworkers, she goes, "What's going on?" And because I was kind of like grabbing at and I said, "Oh, I have this sore." And she taught health science. She goes, let me see that." And she looked at it and she goes, "Oh my God, you need to go to the emergency room right now." I was like,
Mm. Oh gosh, that
so
had to just, you
so it
know.
was like
Mm.
so I called Bill and I said, "Hey, I'm going to the ER, and this is why." So they stuck me back in the hospital. And what had happened is one of the internal stitches that they had put in there couldn't work its way out or didn't dissolve or whatever. So it was causing a fester. And
Mm-hmm.
it did this for, I mean, it would fester up and it would go down. It would fester up and I thought, eventually it'll get, go away. But they had to cut it back out and cut it open.
Mm.
And that was scary for me.
You can
Um,
imagine.
and then they kept me out of school again for like 3 or 4 weeks, and that was, that just drove me absolutely nuts. Because I tend to be a control freak, and I would send lesson plans in, and not a good teacher does that, in my opinion. But I guess I would really wasn't supposed to do it that way. I was supposed to let it be handled however it needed to be handled. So, but um, I don't. I think knowing the mile markers in 2000, and I don't remember, but several years later, my leg ballooned up.
Mm.
I had to go through treatment for lymphedema because no one told me about what lymphedema was, and because they cut all my lymph nodes out of my groin area so that the infection wouldn't go on and spread more. No one explained to me, "Hey, it's going to be important that you do this every day and you wear this compression sock, and we're going to have you fitted for this compression sock." Nothing was ever said until I had this massive leg. And my leg will never be normal. And it's funny because people will look at, like, I'll wear capris or shorts or whatever, and they'll look at my leg and they'll go, and you can see them look at the leg, and they're like, "Should I say something or should I not?" And I always get that one that comes up and says, "You might want to go to the doctor because your leg is really swollen and you could have a blood clot or something." I'm like,
Unsolicited medical advice from the general public
yeah,
does
that
normally not hit the target.
right. So it's always a good way to explain. "Oh, let me tell you why. See, I had the flesh eating bacteria and they removed all my lymph nodes, and so now I have this chronic thing called lymphedema." So, and I believe I was septic way before I was even admitted into the hospital because I wasn't making any sense. If I go back and I look now, I thought I was talking, I wasn't talking. I wasn't making sense. I wasn't doing the things that a normal person should do, but Bill just thought I was being stubborn and bullheaded,
Yeah.
and I thought I was doing everything I needed to do. I would see flies on the walls. So it it's just stupid stuff. I mean, I think we do need to have a better handle, and I don't know how to get there, Jennifer. I think, I know having the foundation is an important way to do it, and I know um, advocating for yourself and others that might have something going on is needed, but I don't know how to get people to really understand. There, there's it's like a handicapped person. You see a handicapped person, you see somebody with a handicap license placard. They get out of their car, they go running into the store, not running in, they go hobbling, walking, whatever, into the store, and you look and you go, they don't look like they need a handicap license. Why do they have that? they look fine, but you don't see the 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 pain that the person goes through walking into the store. You don't see those
Right.
kind of things. So, I mean, I think it's good. It'll be a great day when people understand what NF is. Um, you know, I had NF in May, at the end of May. We weren't at the beach, so I didn't get it from the beach. I live in the Gulf area, and that's the first thing they want to say is, you know, you must have gotten the Vibrio. No, I wasn't. I wasn't in the water. You know, so they really never narrowed down. They said I had a lot of different bacteria, and to be right truthful, a lot of people will get their records, and they'll come through their records. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Because it just,
It's
I would
hard.
read, yeah, I would read some things and I'd be like, okay, you know, I just really I don't really need to know this. You
Yeah.
know, there was no reason why I needed to, because at my doctors were great. I wasn't going through uh, medical malpractice like some people have, you know, and there are doctors that absolutely did the wrong thing for their patients. You know, like I'm grateful my doctor knew exactly what he was looking at. You know, of course, I presented myself pretty late into the game too, because I think had I gone Friday evening to the doctor when I was feeling bad and not feeling really good, had I gone to the ER then, it's likely that they would have thought, you have the flu, go home. And they would have given me the medicine. And because they're the educated person, I would have said, I have the flu. They gave me my medicine. I'm just going to have to wait till Monday and go Monday. And Bill wouldn't have had a leg to stand on, but I didn't do
Yeah.
that. So,
I think that's a big hindrance to care is emergency physicians or general physicians don't know the signs, and they
right,
can't, they see what they see. They don't see
right,
necessarily, like in my case, you couldn't see any signs on the outside because mine was
right,
streptococcal gangrene on the back of my abdominal wall. Well, it didn't
right,
show up for a week and a half. And by that point, I was septic, and they said within 24 hours I'd be gone. In your case,
right.
the doctor saw someone who was sick and thought the flu and sent you home. And with NF, there's such a high mortality rate. And it was probably way more when you had it versus when I had it. When I had it, I think it was 1 in 3 people survived, and I think that's still what the CDC stands on now. But back in 1998, when you had it, that number had to be,
It was a lot. It was, yeah,
yeah.
it
And I
was
think the
higher.
delay in that kind of care and observation
Right,
can really make tremendous difference when time is of the utmost essence.
right. And see, I may have confused it. I didn't go on Friday to the ER. I only went one time, and by then I was really too far along for them to send me home.
Hmm.
So if I would have gone on Friday and they sent me home, because I've in our group, there's been many people that have been sent home, and then they're like, and they have to go back. And I had a spot on my stomach recently. Well, not recently, probably about 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, and it was cellulitis. But it presented itself, and it just kept. I mean, it started off like this at work, and by the time it was like this, it had encompassed the majority of my stomach. And I went in, and the nurse practitioner said, "Oh, it's cellulitis." I mean, that was the quickest ER visit I had, and
Hmm.
I was going through some stuff because my phone broke, so I had to. And I ran across her note saying it was cellulitis, and I told Bill, I said, "Honey, if something happens to me, we have this document that she." And I mean, he didn't even get to drop me off at the car. He dropped me off at the front. I was seen. He didn't even get in and have a drink of soda or anything before I was
You were
being
done.
released.
Yeah.
He was like, he goes, we're going home. And I said, yeah, we're going, let's go. And so I told him, I said, if this gets worse, I did say we're suing, because they know my history. So if they know my history, they've got to pay attention, is kind of, and that she could care less. So, I mean, there's kind of that lackadaisical kind of thing. But I did end up going to my doctor the following day and getting on a different antibiotic. And it was cultured. So, we knew what we were fighting. So that's a good thing,
Absolutely.
And I think that's the important thing. I was able to help one of my students. He had a sore on his hand, and oh my God, it looked horrible. And I said, you need to get to the ER right now, because it talk about taking you back. I said, and he was hospitalized, and they had to go in and debride. And he came back. He goes, "Thank you for telling me to go to the doctor, because I wouldn't have gone." And I said, "Well, you need to, And this past week, my brother-in-law, he's back in Texas now, and he's had a lot of problems with his foot. He's diabetic, and of course, we know people with diabetes tend to have a higher rate of NF because they don't heal as well with their wounds. And he's kind of had this problem with his foot for a year, and it's been healing. And last week he had it debrided a little bit, but they didn't give him any antibiotic. The doctor did the debridement in the office and sent him on. And Tuesday he called. He goes, "I'm in so much pain. I'm in so much pain." And I was like,
oh.
He goes, "I don't want to go to the doctor though, because they're not going to, because he has other conditions.
Yeah.
Goes, "They're not going to do anything." And I said, "Well, just, chill and relax and rest, and maybe it'll stop." Ended up going to the hospital, and his wife called, and she said, "Yeah, they said it was cellulitis, but then they mentioned something about fasciitis." I said, "I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm coming."
Yeah.
And
That's all you needed to hear.
And my brother-in-law was like, "There's a lot of COVID up here." I said, "I don't care. I'll double mask. I'll do whatever." And I was getting in. That day I had put on, not this shirt, but one of my NF shirts. I think it was the Owensboro Run shirt. I'd put it on just, it was just my daily outfit for the day, because I try to wear stuff so that if I do go out, people see it. And if they see it, there's a reason they might need to see it.
Yeah.
So, my brother-in-law thought I was being sneaky and put it on. And I said, "No, I had this on all day." But the doctor came in, and he was like, "Yeah," he goes, "necrotizing fasciitis can kind of like sweep up on you and when you least expect it. So we're going to keep you in the hospital. We're going to put you on IV antibiotics, your symptom." He knew what he was doing. I said, "Well, could we culture that? Let's see what that bug is." And he did, and it was strep. So it gave them the way to take care of it, which, thank goodness, it didn't lean into necrotizing fasciitis. But had it been another doctor, it could have. If it would have been the doctor that saw me, my brother-in-law could be without a foot, without a leg, without a life. So those are things, that are important. And I think advocates are extremely necessary. I mean, I wish there were advocates all over the United States where we could go when we heard, of course they're going to listen to somebody that maybe has been through it. Maybe sometimes they might not. You never know. You never know what their thought is. So
yeah, and sometimes between sending someone home or underestimating the infection itself, a lot of people that I've run into and met through the foundation and just during social interaction on our site, when they went to the hospital or their doctor, they were labeled as drug seeking, because with NF, it's not like you cut your hand and there's hand pain. It's extraordinarily and exponentially magnified to where
Right.
it's a level you
Right.
cannot handle.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense sometimes given the area that's affected or
Right.
infected
Right.
and the pain, because it's just it doesn't quite click because it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But yeah, I know there's a lot of people, they end up avoiding doctors altogether or the
Right.
emergency room because
Right.
they're labeled as such and such, or they're dismissed so easily.
Right. 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 And that's the reason why we keep advocating, we keep pushing, we keep um, doing our best to do what we can to allow people to know what it looks like. I'm not big on showing my scars. It's if I'm wearing shorts and you see my scar, you see it. I'm not covering it on purpose. It's just if I'm not wearing my shorts, you're probably not going to see it. Well, you aren't going to see it, and like we just started going back to the beach recently. I mean, I didn't go to the beach for years because I was like, oh no, oh no. And the one thing I will say is don't stop living. No matter
Absolutely.
what, don't stop living because we're only given X amount of time on this earth and we don't know what that time is. And we choose how we look. Like Bill likes to travel. I like to travel because I like to be with my husband. Um, and that's kind of like right now, John still lives with us at the house. So it's that gives us our time away with and then we get to go see people or like we came to visit you. We get to go do different things. One of Bill's things is he would like to go to a ballpark, get to at least every baseball park. And so we're trying, it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always work out the way we want it to. My stamina is not very good, but my stamina is due and I probably should have my oxygen on and I don't. But it's from something other that came upon way after NF, so it's not something, but it is what it is. So, when we first started traveling, I would find, oh man, I just want to stay in the hotel and sleep. And there were times when we'd go on a trip. Like I remember we went to Boston and we had a good time, but we spent a lot of time in the room. Like we'd go do something and then we'd come back and would take a nap. Then we'd go
Yep.
out again and then we'd come back and we'd take a nap. And it was like when I was younger, I would have never done that, but as I got older, I do that.
Yeah,
So,
naps are wasted on the young.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like a nap though. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, hands down. Hands down. Yeah, the fatigue is definitely something that you don't anticipate will linger.
Mm-mm.
In my recovery, I did find that, there's times I still have those days where it's just, I'm unable to really wake up fully.
Right.
And it's just part of the cycle.
Right.
Now, you mentioned earlier, your children and your husband and recovery. Um, Bill sounds like he was the most amazing advocate you could have.
Oh yeah.
And your mom taking care of the kids, and that's just an amazing network. What would you to say to people who have family members that are really close, whether geographically or, just a close family that are dismissive of how severe this infection is and blame them for their pain or dismiss it altogether and don't provide that critical support during that recovery period?
Well, I would like to get my hands on the people.
I know
um,
you would.
I would really like to get my hands on the people because it's, you know, I still get it. I mean, even with what I'm going through now, you don't want to be sick.
No.
I mean, nobody wants to be sick and nobody wants to be complaining. And there are people that's all they wanted. There are people that will want to, that's because I know some people that's all they want to do is complain about something. I try not to surround myself with those people. But I would say reach out to people that do understand your plight and your fight, because you're not going to, if you're not going to get it there, there's no reason to keep beating your head over that. Because, and I'm not saying cut them out of your life completely, but if they're not being helpful and they're actually hurting you, then what's the point? I mean, what's the point? I mean, because you get tired, and then you start thinking, maybe I'm crazy, maybe there's something wrong with me, and um, to
And you
be
feel guilty. It sets in a guilt
right,
system that
right. I would say now, because I've done it, and I'll tell you honestly, when I got in F, I wouldn't have done it. I would say see a psychologist, see somebody that is professional, that has an unbiased feeling, to help you work through some things that
Mhm.
maybe, I mean, maybe some of those things you do need to work on. Maybe they're not. And then it can help you kind of like chafe off the dead stuff and move towards getting your fresh grain out. It's I don't know. I mean, I would say today, if I were to have NF today, I would definitely have mental health involved, with me, um, because I think it gives you an out, a way to, yeah, I'm feeling really this way, and I don't feel supported this way, and then it helps kind of bring a balance, So, and if you can't afford that, find a good friend. I mean, find a good friend that listens, but also tells you. I mean, I'm not a big advisor. I mean, well, I used to be. I try not to be so much anymore. But I I've asked my kids, because I used to be like, they'd start telling me something, you know, life is going crazy, or I don't understand why and now I say to them, do you want advice or do you just want to vent? And then my brain accept it, and now my kids will say, I'm just venting. My brain can wrap around that, and it's a completely different thing than, hey mom, I really need to talk to you about this, and I'm looking for, and if I feel like I'm overstepping, I do ask, are you venting or do you want advice? Because that's an important thing for us to know too, like, and are we venting or do we need advice? Do we need advice or do we just need to vent? Because everybody's entitled to their feeling and their thought about something. I mean, it might not be the same as mine, but it certainly doesn't mean that I can't care for the person, love the person.
Right. And even, if they do tap, a psychologist or a psychiatrist, even just for an evaluation to see if there's anything that they feel they need to kind of get off their chest or work through. Personally, I had to go through PTSD therapy, which recreated my entire NF experience. Not that it's experience, but when I had it from the time of diagnosis and really the week before that, when I was so ill, through my physical recovery,
Mhm.
because I didn't realize I had PTSD. I was thinking, oh, it's for people who are in wars and
Right,
battling other
right,
countries,
right,
and it's more for soldiers
right.
than regular people like me. And it turned out that actually was in fact what I was going through with the nightmares every night, especially around the anniversary date. Um, And, we had to recreate every minute of that time period, which was brutal. But over the course of a few years, it did really help. And I still get nightmares every year around that time, but it's way better than it was previously.
Right.
So that kind of treatment or
Right.
getting an evaluation just to address not only the psychological, but the emotional toll it
Right.
takes on you.
I can't even imagine what it would be like as a mom, like you having it, and that's supposed to be that time, that time that blessed time that you get with your kid, and when I think of that, I think, wow, I love my kids, and I hugged them, and I loved them, and I cuddled them, and did all that thing. But when I hear stories like yours, I'm like, wow, I should be extremely happy that I got that and not take it for granted, because not everybody gets that, So I think too, being grateful and not taking for granted the things that you're given are an important thing. Like, I'm grateful I have my legs. I'm grateful I got to wake up this morning and wiggle my toes. I think sometimes when awful things happen, we forget to be grateful for the little things, and I think that's huge. I mean, I've been blessed to get to know your little boy, and he's funny as heck and amazing, so
That he is.
it's, I don't and parents that have kids like Katie, that her son went through it,
Yeah.
You have to watch that precious little child that is yours to take care of and protect, and you have to watch the doctors, and you hope that they're doing what they're supposed to be. I can't even imagine. See, God knew I was a control freak and couldn't let that happen to my babies, because I'd probably want to be the doctor on the case.
Yeah. And, when Aton was born, he was 6 weeks early. So the day they rushed me into the emergency or into the surgery, he was in the NICU downstairs.
Yeah.
And, my OB, while running me through the hallway and getting me into the operating theater, told me what they thought it was, and that I might not live through surgery. I had like a 10% chance of making it through the next 24 hours. And all I could think of is, I've got my new husband and our precious baby. I want to live to see him grow. And, I've been so fortunate, and gratefulness is so important, I think, in your own recovery, because it helps you heal from the inside out. I'm grateful for everything. I'm grateful for, every moment with him, and every year he gets older. He's now 8.5. Every sunrise and sunset, or if I catch, a cardinal in the wintertime, which you don't really see much of. It's more of a New York thing, but you don't see them terribly much in Ohio. I mean, they are here, but just those little things like, dragonfly landing on you, or just whatever your own view is, and what's just amazing to you, and to be grateful for that, instead of, bitter or
Upset. Angry.
Yeah, angry. Absolutely angry. A lot of people just end up in anger and don't know how to pull themselves out of that, or the depression that goes along with the physical. But, thank goodness, we're here to help educate. But, there are different ways everybody does handle it, and that people, when they find someone they love has NF, whether it was caught from something at the beach or seafood, or, a pimple on the leg, or a surgery, everyone's going to handle it a different way, and families should just kind of seek out their own help to realize how they can help their family member best when they recover.
Right. And I think grieving, understanding you have to grieve your life, is an important thing. It does, the amount of time you grieve it is insignificant to understanding that you're grieving what you've lost by accepting the new of what you're getting.
Yes.
You know, because it goes hand in hand. You know, um, we're caterpillars turned into butterflies. You know, we're some of us have gone down to ashes and turned into this great phoenix kind of thing. You know, it's what you turn yourself into. I mean, it sucks. It's a bad thing to go through, but if you can talk, you're alive to do something. There's a reason you're here. So,
Absolutely.
so I think that's,
Absolutely.
you know, I think grieving is an important thing because a lot's been taken from you. I mean, and that hurts. I mean,
Hmm.
that hurts.
Yeah. And it's things like that that people don't expect when they get the diagnosis and they get the operation that you have to go through. It is experiencing a death in the way that it's the death of who you were before and who you are now and how you present yourself and heal yourself going forward.
Right.
So I like to say I'm a cat and I've got like 5 lives left. So I think I've been through 4, might be 5, but either way, I'm still good for a while.
Right.
So,
Right.
well, Melissa, it has been just fantastic catching up with you today. Ladies and gentlemen, Melissa Sanders is the co-founder of the Necrotizing Fasciitis Foundation and a survivor of NF since 1998. Melissa, give our love to Bill. I look forward to seeing you guys personally soon. We do have a baseball field here in Cleveland, so
Yeah. Yeah. You changed your name though.
yeah, Guardians.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Guardians of the
we're
Galaxy.
not far. We're not far from Pittsburgh, so you could do, like a
I
double
know.
run,
I know.
you know.
We've talked about that. We've talked about it. And we've been to
It-
Boston, so we've got to go back because we didn't get to Fenway Park. We got to drive by Fenway Park, but
Ah,
we were there too early. We were there during spring break and it was snowing. It was amazing though.
yeah, Boston's gorgeous when it snows, but when you're going to like look at a baseball field, it's a little different.
Yeah, well,
Um,
we weren't going that day.
yeah. All right.
So
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this week on The Steep. My name is Jennifer Borrow, Secretary for the Board of Directors, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks and have a great day.